and social-legal activist in Pune, India. She passionately champions human rights, particularly for women, children, senior citizens, LGBTQ+ individuals, and marginalized sectors. With a profound interest in both the theoretical and practical aspects of law, she earned the Vice-Chancellor's International Scholarship to pursue her Master of Laws in Human Rights Law at Cardiff University, UK. In 2020, Parikrama ma'am founded the Sapient Law Chambers, an all-female firm fostering secure spaces for women to interpret and implement laws, promoting qualitative and quantitative female participation in the legal field. She mentors girls in rural areas, encouraging them to interpret the law from a feminist perspective. Engaging with the Sakhi One-Stop Center scheme and the Ministry of Women and Child Development, Government of India, she offers comprehensive legal aid to women, aiding them in breaking free from cycles of violence. Collaborating with Deepstone Trust Sanghi, she operates a counseling and legal aid center in Family Matters Center. Ma'am also leads the women's cell of the Shivaji Nagar branch in Pune for the Maharashtra Andhashraddha Nirmulan Samiti, focusing on dispelling superstitions among women. Recognized as a resource person, she conducts seminars and webinars on various law-related topics concerning women and children, contributing significantly to her community. In 2022-23, she was honored with the prestigious 30th Award by Cardiff University, celebrating her impactful contributions as a changemaker and innovator in their alumni community. We are truly privileged to welcome ma'am, whose work reflects compassion, courage, and commitment to justice. With this, I request our principal ma'am to felicitate Advocate Parikrama Khot ma'am. Welcome, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Now, without further ado, I invite ma'am to address all of us on the topic of transgender rights.
Audible this way, or do I need to have a mic for better communication? Mic? I'm audible. I don't want this to be a barrier between us, so that we can have discussions. And that's the reason I'm not having any PPT, because this is just a discussion. I need to know so many things from you, and perhaps if I could share a few things of what all I have been doing. So today, for my topic for discussion, thank you so much first of all for having me here. Thank you so much, Sharmishta ma'am, for inviting me and having me here. My topic for discussion today is discussion around the rights of transgender people or transgender community at large. Before going there, we all call ourselves, who all are we? We all are law students, law professors, law practitioners, law students. But at all given point, even you, I'm very sure, and even me, we all of us, we need to study, we need to understand, we need to comprehend law on day-to-day basis. कारण सुप्रीम कोर्ट, हायकोर्टचे दररोज काहीतरी जजमेंट्स येत असतात आणि दररोज काहीतरी नवीन घडत असतं. त्यामुळे आपल्या सगळ्यांना वेगवेगळ्या पद्धतीने ह्या लॉच्या संदर्भात अपग्रेड स्वतःला करत राहावं लागतं. So I just have a very fundamental, very basic question before starting this discussion, and that would be, can anyone among us help me with the definition of law? What is law? Can we define law? Please. आपण सगळे लॉचे स्टुडंट्स आहोत इथे ना, म्हणजे माझ्या माहितीप्रमाणे बाकी अजून डिपार्टमेंटचे जर असतील तर प्लीज व्हॉट इज लॉ? येस प्लीज. Law is the command of the sovereign. Yes, very well. True. What else? Law is the command of the sovereign. Yes. Now you can also answer.
It is set of rules.
Law is set of rules and regulations. By the public order. Sorry.
Rules regulation to maintain public order.
Set of rules and regulations to maintain public order at large. True. Right. What else?
Ultimate source of justice.
Ultimate source of justice. I like that word. I kind of love that word. Justice. Yes. What else? So when I was pursuing my degree in law and I was completing my LLB, I happened to I happened to learn from very brilliant minds in this legal fraternity, and one of them told us a very interesting definition of law. And that helped me understand whenever, whichever criteria, whichever sector of law you study into or you learn into, I always come back and I always try and check. जे काही मी वाचते, जे काही मी शिकते, मी त्या डेफिनेशनला लावून बघते की हे इथे फिट होत आहे का, and if that is fitting or if that is matching, then yes, we are doing things on a greater good or for a greater good is what I feel personally. So for me, or my understanding of law or my definition of law is, law means nothing but logical application of wisdom. So, according to that definition, if we put that definition into use in every aspect or in every perspective wherein we are going to practice, wherein we are going to profess, teach, learn, whatever set of law you are planning to do, and this same definition, I tried applying to this whole new community or whole new, not new community, but whole new understanding around the community of transgender people. We had this act, the Transgender People Protection of Rights Act in 2019. 2019 मध्ये हा कायदा आला, म्हणजे 2019च्या आधी आपल्याकडे ट्रान्सजेंडर कम्युनिटी अस्तित्वात नव्हती का? त्यांच्या संदर्भातले, त्यांच्या अन्यायाबद्दल, त्यांच्यासोबत घडत असलेल्या सगळ्याच एकंदरीत जे काही आता आनंदाला किंवा त्याच्या आधी अर्चनाताई जे काही बोलून गेलेले असणार आहे, अशा वेगवेगळ्या डोमेनमध्ये काम करणारी ही जी सगळी काही लोक असतात, ही सगळी लोक कायम मेल किंवा फिमेल ह्या दोनच सेटमध्ये डिवाइड केलेल्या असतात का किंवा आहेत का? Now this brings me to my next question. Can anyone here please help me to understand the difference between sex and gender? What is sex and what is gender? Archana Maharaj, yes please. Archana Tayi bolte yes. Now we are very clear. So please help me understand what is difference between sex and gender, or are they similar things?
Sex is the biological identity that
Yes.
can be determined. For example,
Yes.
it's gender. And when gender comes, we can't define gender as male, female. We have norms, right? Complete system is there.
True. So sex is something that we are assigned at the time of our birth. While we came, when we get to this world, and gender is something that is socially, that is culturally, or that is while we're staying in the society as large, as Anand was discussing, at the intersectionality of all this social, cultural, even financial lenses, all this help together to constitute our gender. And then we get this term, or we understand, or we read this word transgender. Gender is समझ में नहीं आ रहा था, अभी transgender आ गया. Now this whole situation, or now this whole understanding gets even more complicated. But why does it get so much more complicated? ह्याच्या मागे थोडंसं there is a bit line, or there is bit science or biology to this term. हे फक्त आपल्याला कायदेशीर दृष्टिकोनातून जितकं समजून घेणं आवश्यक आहे, तितक्या ह्याच्या मागची एक सायकोलॉजी, तितकंच ह्याच्या मागची एक बायोलॉजी ही समजून घेणं आपल्याला आवश्यक आहे. When we say this person standing here, he is a male, on what what basis we call that person a male? Just because he look like a gentleman?
Biology.
The biology of that person. And what is that biology? The chromosome that he carries, XY chromosome. When we say that I am a female or I identify myself as a female, on what basis I do that?
XX.
My XX chromosomes, my internal and external reproductive systems. Based on all that, we call this, we identify, or the person himself identify, or the person identify himself as a male or as a female. Now, naturally, this is not something, or this is not modern day phenomena, or this is not something westernized thought, but naturally, and studies have, we have paper, we have research doing this, going around this for a long time now. Naturally, there are certain chromosomes, or there are certain set of chromosomes in your body which are not always XY or XX. That could be XSY, that could be XYY, or that could be combination, permutations of something beyond which we could even understand or comprehend to understand. In all that technicalities, in all that understanding, we need to understand this transgender community or transgender definition of transgender at large. So when this act came into force, so many people around, or so many people who are working for the community, they kind of had objection to the definition they had for this transgender. This act defined transgender person means any person whose gender doesn't match with the gender assigned to him at the time of his birth. Right? So at the time of my birth, if my gender is something else, and now I don't identify, or I don't, my understanding, my feelings, my perspective doesn't match with the gender I had been assigned at the time of my birth, then there is a conflict. जेव्हा आम्ही अशा अनेक व्यक्तींसोबत बोलतो, त्यांच्यासोबत लिगल वेगवेगळ्या याच्यातनं काम करतो, तेव्हा त्यांना असं असतं की मला कळतं की माझी बॉडी महिलेची आहे, पण मला ते फील नाही होत. मला घुसमट होते माझ्या शरीरात किंवा माझ्या बॉडीमध्ये माझी घुसमट होते. आय डोंट फील दॅट आय एम अ वुमन, इवन दो माय बॉडी टेक्निकली reflects, or technically if someone looks at me from outer perspective, from outside, they'll say, अच्छा बाईच तर बाईसारखी बाई आहे, सगळं व्यवस्थित आहे, काय प्रॉब्लेम. पण मला स्वतःला त्या आयडेंटिटीमध्ये माझी स्वतःची घुसमट. अशा वेगळ्या वेगळ्या अर्थाने आपल्याला या ट्रान्सजेंडर या होल अंडरस्टँडिंगबद्दल किंवा या ट्रान्सजेंडर या होल कम्युनिटी असेल याच्याबद्दल समजून घ्यायला हवं, अंडरस्टँड. When we got this Transgender Act 2019 into place, there was so much discourse, or there was so much understanding, discussion that was going on regarding जर मग हे असं आहे तर transgender is this the only term, or is this the only community that we have to fix? जेव्हा आपण याच्याबद्दल बोलतो तेव्हा आपण इंटरसेक्स हा शब्द सुद्धा वापरतो. जेव्हा आपण याच्याबद्दल बोलतो तेव्हा आपण आता खूप मोठ्या अम्ब्रेला टर्ममध्ये LGBTQIA आणि एच्या पुढे लागलेलं असलेलं प्लस. What does that suggest is there is something which we need to be discovered, that is there are few identities, there are few gender identities that we are still discovering, that the people are still understanding. So very recent case wherein we normally tend to use all these words in a more discriminatory and rather defamatory terms. So when we call someone, अच्छा है, he's a rape, lesbian नहीं है, the tone, the suggestion, the demeanor of the tone is more about the discrimination and the defamation that the word carry around it. And why does that happen? Because in normal parlance or in normal understanding, normal means what we normally think is normal, आपल्या normal understanding मध्ये किंवा आपल्या नॉर्मल डिस्कोर्समध्ये आपल्यासाठी स्त्री आणि पुरुष याच्या व्यतिरिक्त जे काही आहे ते अनैसर्गिक आहे, चुकीचं आहे, घाणेरडं आहे किंवा शी किती घाण आहे, हा विचार पण कसा करू शकतात त्या थॉटने आलेला आहे. पण इफ यू लुक बॅक इन टू दिस अँड ॲज वी वर डिस्कसिंग discussion of the topic, this is the biology of humanity, this is the understanding of humanity, this is science that the body that we all are trying or we all need to understand in that science. मग ह्या संदर्भाने अनेक वर्षांपासून अनेक वेगवेगळ्या संघटनांनी एकत्र येत त्यांच्या हक्कांसाठी, त्यांच्या अधिकारांसाठी स्वतःच्या आपल्या भारतीय संविधानामध्ये, जसं आता दादा सांगत होतं की हे आपल्या डोमेस्टिक डिस्कोर्सचा पार्ट व्हायला पाहिजे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, ते जोपर्यंत होत नाही तोपर्यंत आपल्याला फक्त माहिती असतं की कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनमध्ये आर्टिकल 14 and 15 prohibits me from any sort of discrimination and I cannot discriminate anyone based on their gender, caste, identity, right to equality we talk about. But मग हे आर्टिकल 15 जर आपल्या कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनचं आपण मान्य केलेलं आहे, 14-15 आपण मान्य केलेलं आहे आणि त्या बेसिसवरती मागच्या 72-75 वर्षांपासून आपण जेंडर इक्वालिटीबद्दल किंवा प्रोहिबिशन ऑफ डिस्क्रिमिनेशनबद्दल जर आपण बोलत आहोत तर आपल्याला लक्षात घेतलं पाहिजे की त्याच्यानंतर साधारणपणे 72 वर्षानंतर आपल्याकडे हा कायदा अस्तित्वात आलेला आहे आणि हा कायदा आजही परत तेच सांगतोय जे आपण आपल्या भारताच्या संविधानात सांगितलं होतं. 1950 we got our constitution in 1950, right? 1950 साली आपण जे आपल्या संविधानात सांगितलं होतं, दुर्दैवानं ह्या कायद्यामध्ये आपल्याला परत हेच मेन्शन करावं लागतंय की we cannot discriminate with the transgender community based on their gender orientation. They have equal right to education, they have equal right to employment, they have equal right to all the social, cultural, financial establishments, narratives, just like us. आणि ह्या कायद्याने परत हेच एस्टॅब्लिश करण्याचा प्रयत्न केला की डिस्क्रिमिनेशन इन एनी फॉर्म विथ द पर्सन हू आयडेंटिफाय देमसेल्फ as a trans person, as a trans woman, as a trans man, as an intersex, as a queer, as a hijra is strictly prohibited. मग जर जेंडरच्या बेसिसवरती डिस्क्रिमिनेशन प्रोहिबिट केलेलं आहे हे ऑलरेडीच आपण एस्टॅब्लिश केलेलं आहे आणि या कायद्यात जर आपल्याला ते परत सांगावं लागतं याचा अर्थ द लॉ ऑलवेज रिफ्लेक्ट व्हॉट द सोसायटी फील्स. समाजात जे काही घडते त्याचं रिफ्लेक्शन कायद्यांमध्ये दिसतं. मग जर हा कायदा आपल्याला करावा लागतो तर समाजात आजही त्या लेवलला होत असलेलं डिस्क्रिमिनेशन, आजही त्या अँगलनी होत असलेलं त्यांच्यासोबत जो काही भेदभाव, अन्यायकारक वागणूक जी काही त्यांना दिल्या जाते त्याबद्दल बोललं जातं, त्याबद्दल ह्या कायद्यामध्ये बोललं गेलं. I was rather dealing with a case of a mutual divorce matter. आणि तुम्ही म्हणाल की मला म्युच्युअल डिवोर्स आणि ट्रान्सजेंडर याचं काय कुठे कसं कनेक्शन आहे. एक मित्र आहे म्हणजे आता ही बिकम अ गुड फ्रेंड इव्हेंच्युअली. सो ही केम आउट ऑफ हिज क्लॉसेट, म्हणजे त्यांनी त्याच्या घरातल्या लोकांना जाऊन हे सांगितलं दॅट आय एम नॉट इंटरेस्टेड इन टू वुमन, नॉट इन टू एनी पर्टिक्युलर वुमन ॲज सच ऑर फिमेल ॲज सच, आय एम नॉट इंटरेस्टेड इन टू देम. ही माझी आयडेंटिटी, आय एम स्टील स्ट्रगलिंग टू अंडरस्टँड दॅट वे, पण हे मला क्लिअरली माहिती आहे की दॅट आय एम नॉट इंटरेस्टेड इन टू वुमन. आणि मला माझ्यावरती लग्न वगैरे या सगळ्या गोष्टींची तुम्ही बळजबरी करू नका, ते माझ्याकडनं होणार नाही. Instead of understanding or instead of providing a family support or instead of giving him good family support and conditioning that okay you understand, you are fighting, you are struggling, त्याच्या आईने तो जर ह्या मुलीशी लग्न केलं नाही तर मी आत्महत्या करेन अशा प्रकारे इमोशनली प्रेशराईज करून, अशा प्रकारे इमोशनली ब्लॅकमेल वुड बी आय डोंट नो इफ दॅट राईट वर्ड टू यूज केल्या गेला आणि त्या मुलीच्या सोबत लग्न लावून दिलं गेलं त्याचं. आफ्टर गेटिंग मॅरिड दे वेंट ऑफ टू गोवा अँड देअर द गाय टोल्ड द गर्ल, सी दिस इज द कंडिशन, आय एम नॉट इंटरेस्टेड इन टू यू अँड फॉर दॅट मॅटर इन टू एनी इन टू द फिमेल कम्युनिटी ॲट लार्ज. But if you want, we can keep this marriage sustaining. You find a partner, you engage into things you want to. I'll find my partner, and for society at large, we'll show them that okay, you're husband and wife, but it will be understanding between us. इनिशियली इन अ कम्प्लीट डिनायल मोड. वी नीड टू, आपण मगासपासून इंटरसेक्शनॅलिटी या गोष्टीवरती बोलत आहोत. तर every single incident or every single experience, now that I'm also working as a lawyer and as a counselor and also along with the Andhashraddha Nirmoolan Samiti, I tend to understand or I tend to experience or understand things from all this intersectionality. हे सगळं जेव्हा त्या मुलीला समजलं तेव्हा तिची पहिली प्रतिक्रिया ऑफकोर्स डिनायल होती, नाही असं असू शकत नाही. दुसरं होतं की मग त्याला कुठल्या तरी बुवा बाबाकडे घेऊन जाऊया, which is a very common thing for us, like when we understand things which are beyond our common understanding, which are beyond our common perspective, or beyond our common assumptions or presumptions, ज्या गोष्टींची आपल्याला लवकर उत्तरं सापडत नाहीत किंवा जी प्रश्नच आपल्याला लवकर झेपत नाहीत, त्याच्यासाठी मग आपण काहीतरी अननॅचरल उत्तरं शोधण्याचा प्रयत्न करतो. सो द गाय वॉज टेकन टू अ तांत्रिक बाबा. देअर इन few things were told to him की अच्छा हे असं करा, हे असं केलं तर, मग ह्या झाडाला असं काही पाणी घातलं तर हे असं होईल, इतके वाजता उठलं आणि असं केलं तर असं होईल. And few other things which were been told to him. The guy strictly denied doing all of it. Eventually the girl gave up and she was like, okay, me eka point nanta you cannot force or I cannot force you. And eventually both the families agreed for the divorce. But then the girl came to me with a question, ma'am, ह्या पुरुषाने माझ्या अंगाला कधीच हात लावला नाही, आमच्या नवरा बायकोंनी कधीच कुठल्याही प्रकारे संबंध प्रस्थापित होऊ शकले नाही. याला कारण तसं टेक्निकल बघायला गेलं तर ही व्यक्ती आहे ज्याला मी नवरा म्हणते. बट फॉर सोसायटी एट लार्ज नाव आय कॅरी द टॅग ऑफ अ डिवोर्स. देन whose fault it is? Law. But then we applied the definition of law, that law is logical application of wisdom. Was the wisdom really applied here? Or even the logic? So, Transgender Protection Act किंवा Transgender Community or Transgender Communityचे rights बद्दल जेव्हा आपल्याला बोलायचं असतं तेव्हा आपल्याकडे मग आता जे महत्त्वाचं जजमेंट आपल्याकडे सुप्रीम कोर्टाने येऊन दिलं, wherein they identified their right, wherein the court identified the right of their self-identification, it still denied the right to establish family or to get married or to have children. म्हणजे आपल्याला असं समजायचं आहे का किंवा आपल्याला असं मान्य करायचं आहे का की स्त्री किंवा पुरुष याच्या पलीकडे असणाऱ्या जेंडर्सला फॅमिली असण्याचा किंवा दे डोंट क्रेव टू हॅव फॅमिली, दे डोंट क्रेव टू हॅव चिल्ड्रन्स, दे डोंट क्रेव टू हॅव being surrounded by the people they love or the people they love them back. मग अशा सगळ्या पॅरलेल्समध्ये एप्रिल 2014 मध्ये नागसाचं किंवा त्यानंतर आलेल्या नौतेचं जे काही जजमेंट्स होते, जे मेजर जजमेंट्स होते, ज्याच्यामध्ये हे परत इस्टॅब्लिश केलं गेलं की ठीक आहे, यू कॅन हॅव युअर ओन आयडेंटिटी, यू कॅन क्लेम युअर ओन आयडेंटिटी. आणि त्याच्यामुळे हा कायदा पुढे जाऊन आपल्याला हे पण सांगतो दॅट the person who identify themselves as a trans person or a transgender, he or she along to their pronouns, they can apply for to the district magistrate to get their transgender certificate. And once they have the certificate, once they have the document, then and then only they can identify themselves as a trans person or a transgender. Now the process of getting a transgender certificate, imagine that getting from a court, imagine that getting from a district court, imagine the documentation that goes into. If I am a woman by birth and I want to express my identity, or I want the people, I want the society at large to know me as a trans woman or as a trans person, I have to get a certificate from the district magistrate to prove my identity, to claim my identity on documents. हे करण्यासाठी surprisingly, you don't have to get a transgender certificate. You don't have to get any sexual reassignment surgery or anything like that. You can apply that's a very tedious process. Even getting a transgender certificate is a very tedious process. But you apply and you get it. But जर आज मी माझे ट्रान्सजेंडर सर्टिफिकेट घेते आहे, if I am getting a trans woman certificate now, and tomorrow I want myself to get identified as a female, or tomorrow if I want to get identified as a male, I was born as a female, then I get my transgender certificate, but now I want myself to be claimed or myself to be identified as a male, then the process of sexual reassignment surgery comes in. Again, very thankfully, honestly, very thankfully, the Act doesn't say about this sexual reassignment surgery should be done from government hospital. Otherwise, that would have been a very, very unfortunate thing. कारण की खूप क्लिशे असं असणारं जे मेडिकल सेक्टरमधलं सुद्धा हे आहे, डोमेन आहे. And then, after getting your sexual reassignment surgery, or the surgery that technically transform your sexual orientation is what they claim, then the medical superintendent where you perform that surgery, the medical superintendent gives you certain sort of certification that okay, I have performed this surgery and now this person can claim the identity they want to claim. And on the basis of that certification, I have to go back to the district magistrate and then I had to claim my new identity. Imagine the struggle that goes into just to identify or just to claim my own identity. आणि ह्या सगळ्यांच्या मध्ये मग माझं होत असलेलं सामाजिक खच्चीकरण, आर्थिक खच्चीकरण, खूप लहान लहान ठिकाणी होत असणारे भेदभाव, खूप लहान लहान ठिकाणी मला मिळत असलेली मी काहीतरी वेगळी व्यक्ती आहे ही वागणूक. Even the Supreme Court says that, with all due respect, even the highest court in this land says that we can identify yourself as a third gender. So who is the first gender? Who is the second gender? If they are the third gender. And on what basis are we discriminating? Are we putting all this gender on this first, second and third ranking? Are we giving certain more privileges to the first gender and the second gender compared to the third gender then? So all these questions, as a law student, we all, even though I'm standing here having my law degree with me, but we all, at still the last minute of our life, are law student. And being a law student, I think I understand all these questions. This team up with all interconnected. Again, we come back to the intersectionality. We need to understand the sociology, the psychology, the biology, even the anthropology of while understand the struggles, the drives, there's this great movement that is happening around the world, not only in India. It's happening around the world when we talk about transgender rights. When we talk about black rights, when we talk about feminism, when we talk about men right matters, yes they do. Yes they do. But there's this great discourse that keeps going around when we talk about this so-called third gender person. Then this act goes forth and speaks about so many things into balance, and the most interesting part that as a lawyer, especially if anyone here is interested into criminal law, is the punishment or the penalties that goes around. की जर केलं आम्ही डिस्क्रिमिनेशन, कायदा सांगतोय की यांच्यासोबत भेदभाव करायचा नाही. You should not discriminate any person based on the gender, their orientation, their identity. आणि मग हा भेदभाव कुठेच करायचा नाही. शाळेत नाही, कॉलेजमध्ये नाही, कामाच्या ठिकाणी नाही, घरी नाही. त्या व्यक्तीला तिच्यासोबत, तिच्या फॅमिलीसोबत राहायचं असेल तर that person has all the right to stay with the family. The person has all the right to have a normal or basic, just like us, background or अंडरस्टँडिंग अराउंड हिम. आणि हे जर कोणी करत नसेल, हे जर आपण करत नसू किंवा त्या व्यक्तीच्यासोबत कोणी भेदभाव करत असेल, त्या व्यक्तीला कोणी अन्यायकारक वागणूक देत असेल, त्यांना ती व्यक्ती फक्त तिचं सेक्शुअल ओरिएंटेशन हे विशिष्ट प्रकारचं आहे म्हणून तिच्यासोबत डिस्क्रिमिनेशन होत असेल, देन द ॲक्ट टॉक अबाउट पनिशमेंट विच लाईन्स फ्रॉम 6 months to 2 years. So imagine even doing that, taking away the basic dignity, a human hold. The next step for men, women and third gender, the basic dignity a human holds by the very virtue of being a human. हे आम्ही जेव्हा डिस्कशन करत असतो वेगवेगळ्या ठिकाणी, जेव्हा आमचं बरेचदा असं डिस्कशन असतं की आपण मानवाधिकाराच्या गप्पा किंवा ह्युमन राईटच्या गप्पा या खूप वरवरच्या लेवलला करत असतो. जसं आता दादा सांगत होते की अनऑर्गनाइज सेक्टरमधल्या इमॅजिन a person, imagine the plight of the person, imagine all the disturbances, imagine what everything the person has been going through. If the person belongs to an unorganized sector, जिथे 2 वेळच्या खाण्यापिण्याची सुद्धा एका पॉईंट नंतर शाश्वती नाही आहे, व्यवस्थित आजच्या माझ्या दिवसाची शाश्वती नाही आहे, तर माझं उद्या काय असेल आणि माझं भविष्य काय असेल ह्याची जिथे शाश्वती नाही आहे, तिथे स्वतःच्या मनात सुरू असलेली ही घुसमट की माझी आयडेंटिटीच माझी नाही, आणि त्याच्यातनं तो निर्माण होणारा एक जो दुहेरी संघर्ष. सो व्हॉट ऑल दे फेस और व्हॉट ऑल दे गो थ्रू इज, आय डोंट थिंक इवन वी ऑल कॅन इवन इमॅजिन ऑर फॉरगेट अबाउट अंडरस्टँडिंग, वी कॅन इवन इमॅजिन. सो ह्या सगळ्या पर्स्पेक्टिव्हने, ह्या दृष्टिकोनाकडनं बघणं, या एकंदरीत विषयाकडे बघणं मला असं वाटतं जास्त महत्त्वाचं आहे किंवा समजून घेणं जास्त महत्त्वाचं आहे. वी हॅड दिस ॲक्ट ब्रिटिशांच्या काळामध्ये, आय एम नॉट एबल टू गेट द एक्झॅक्ट वर्ड, पण त्याच्यामध्ये काही विशिष्ट समुदायातले काही विशिष्ट म्हणजे फासेपारधी लोक जर काही असतील, सॉरी हां क्रिमिनल ट्राईब्स ॲक्ट, थँक्यू सो मच. सो क्रिमिनल ट्राईब्स ॲक्ट जो आपल्याकडे होता की जे विशिष्ट समुदायातले लोक जी काही असतील, सो the government would use to claim them that they are criminals, and they were not given enough chances or even enough and this what we can call, they were not given a chance basically to prove that they are innocent just by the virtue of belonging to a certain community. आणि जिथे आपण जन्माला कुठे यावं हेही आपल्या हातात नाही आहे, just because I belong to a certain community, I am claimed or I am tagged as a criminal. कमी अधिक प्रमाणामध्ये आजकाल ह्या सगळ्या पॅरलन्समध्ये किंवा ह्या कम्युनिटीच्या सोबत आपण काम करत असताना, त्यांच्यासोबत बोलत असताना कमी अधिक प्रमाणामध्ये तेही कुठेतरी घडताना दिसतं आहे. त्याच्याही बद्दलचे वेगवेगळे अनुभव आम्हाला येत आहेत जेव्हा आम्ही यांच्यासोबत काम करतो. हे हिजडे आहेत ना, हे असेच असणार, यांना सवयच आहे, हे असंच करतात. Why can't they get some dignified job? Why can't they go and work in more organized sector? Because आपल्याकडे 2023 साली 2023 मध्ये 2023 or 2024 पोलीस भरतीमध्ये ट्रान्सजेंडर कम्युनिटीमधनं पीपल वर अलाउड 22, 23.
Implement to the man, right?
Yes. So we had to wait till 2022, 2023 to get an official affirmation, official confirmation from the government that yes, these people, according to them, the so-called abnormal people are now normal and they can even apply for the police bharti examination and they can get recruited by the police bharti. हे बघण्यासाठी किंवा हे करण्यासाठी आपल्याला 2023 पर्यंत 22 पर्यंत थांबायला लागतं. आणि मग आपण ट्रान्सजेंडर लोकांच्या सोबत असलेल्या इक्वालिटीबद्दल, त्यांच्या इक्वल राईट्सबद्दल, कामाच्या ठिकाणी होत असणाऱ्या भेदभावाबद्दल बोलतो. आपल्याला 2023-24 पर्यंत थांबावं लागतं. त्यांना आपल्याकडे वनरक्षक सुद्धा त्या पोस्टला सुद्धा त्याच्यानंतरच मान्यता मिळाली की ठीक आहे पोलीस भरतीमध्ये अलाउड केलं, आता बाकीच्या डिपार्टमेंटमध्ये सुद्धा ते अलाउड होईल. मग 22मध्ये ते अलाउड होतं, 23-24मध्ये इव्हेंच्युअली एव्हरीवन स्टार्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट इट अँड ते काइंड ऑफ क्रिएट प्रेशर ग्रुप अँड प्रेशर हे आणि मग ते ठीक आहे ओके विल अलाउ दॅम की त्यांचं म्हणजे दे आर नॉट इन्फेरियर टू अदर टू जेंडर्स अँड दे कॅन perform very well in the police department or in the Vanrakshak or in the forest department. So we need to understand the dynamics of rights that revolves around the gender discourse, that revolves around the sexual orientation discourse from this perspective of transgender community as well. कारण त्यांच्या सोबतचे असलेले म्हणजे आता इमॅजिन a person who craves to have family but cannot just because the person identified themselves or himself as a transgender. मला मूल दत्तक घेण्याचा अधिकार नाहीये कारण मी ट्रान्सजेंडर आहे. मला लग्न करण्याचा अधिकार नाहीये कारण मी ट्रान्सजेंडर आहे. मला माझ्या नावाने ट्रान्सजेंडर अशी आयडेंटिटी जर मी दिली तर माझं इन्शुरन्स सुद्धा निघत नाही. मी ट्रान्सजेंडर अशी जेव्हा माझी आयडेंटिटी सांगते ही मी गर्वाने सांगायला हवे. याच्यासाठी वेगवेगळ्या पद्धतीने कायद्यामध्ये किंवा वेगवेगळ्या पद्धतीने अनेक योजना आणून काम केलं जातं. पण मी माझी ओरिजिनल आयडेंटिटी ट्रान्सजेंडर असं सांगितलं तर किती टक्के सोसायट्यांमध्ये मला घरं दिली जातात, किती टक्के सोसायट्यांमध्ये माझं रेसिडेन्स मान्य केलं जातं. इफ दे कम दे गेट द केऑस. हे लोक इथे आले की टाळ्या वाजवणाऱ्या लोकांना सोबत घेऊन येतील अशा पद्धतीनं त्यांच्याकडे बघितलं जातं. आणि जे आपण मगाशी बोलत होतो वाय कॅन्ट दे डू सम गुड जॉब, वाय डोंट दे जस्ट गो अँड गेट अर्न मनी. आय आस्क यू टू प्रोव्हाइड दम गुड जॉब. आपण इथे जितके सगळे लोक बसलेलो आहोत इमॅजिन करा एखादी ट्रान्स वुमन ज्यांना आपण म्हणतो ना, ज्यांना आपण रस्त्यावरती बघतो की काय हे सगळे सारखे टाळ्या वाजवत असतात आणि पैसे मागायला येतात, त्यांच्यापैकी कोणी आपल्याकडे उद्या साधं झाडू पोछ्याचं काम मागायला आले तर आपल्यापैकी किती जण तयार असतील? आय एम आस्किंग ऑल ऑफ अस, नॉट ऑल ऑफ यू, ऑल ऑफ अस दिस क्वेश्चन. आर वी म्हणजे आपल्यापैकी किती लोक या गोष्टीला तयार असतील की उद्यापासून माझी येणारी स्वयंपाकवाली मावशी तिची आयडेंटिटी ट्रान्स वुमन असं सांगून जर ती माझ्या घरी स्वयंपाक करायला आली, how many among us will be comfortable if tomorrow a student sitting in the class, a professor teaching you, स्वतःची आयडेंटिटी जर त्यांनी हे सांगून हे केलं की आय एम अ ट्रान्स वुमन, आय एम अ ट्रान्स मॅन, आय एम अ ट्रान्स पर्सन, आय एम अ किन्नर, आय एम अ हिजरा, but I'll be teaching you Indian Constitution. And then we talk about equal or cerebral opportunities in the education, domain, and whatnot and everything. So transgender rights, when we talk about a transgender right that we express ourselves around, understand around, needs to be understood or needs to be discussed in this perspective or this balance of the gender, the sexuality, the discrimination and everything in between that goes around. There's just this one statement that I'll say, and I would like to conclude this presentation and we'll go ahead with this question answer session if you all have any. There's this very famous sociologist who once stated, I'm not able to get the name right now, sex is something that is between our legs, but gender is something that is between our two ears. What all we think, what all we condition, what all we perceive, what all we understand. And this understanding need to be more compassionate, more empathetic, sympathizing towards, if we call them a third gender, if we want to call them a third gender. So this is all that I wanted to present today. And if you all have any sort of question, comments, or suggestions, just experience sharing, I'm looking for.
Thank you, ma'am, for your insightful words and sensitizing us about transgender rights. Audience, do we have any questions?
It at times is very difficult to understand what exactly transgender means, because personally I do not understand whether it is coming from a scientific point of view or it is coming from a psychological point of view. How one is feeling about their own gender.
Correct.
So I don't know, is it scientific or is it psychological?
See, transgender, the term, it comprehends or it everything. Trans women, trans men, intersex is technically an umbrella term, but now this act has also put the intersex in the definition of transgender. Transgender, there are certain chromosomes that goes into place biologically, scientifically, if you want to ask, biologically or scientifically, even that is a possibility that we cannot rule out. There are certain cases or there are certain examples wherein that is not biologically, the feeling of is not biologically present there, but the person psychologically feels that I don't belong to this particular body I am into. Like I am born as a female, but I don't feel comfortable myself expressing as a female. So there goes in the psychological dilemma, and there multiple, even when we have put plus into this whole LGBTQI thing, there are at par now more than 40 plus identities those have been discovered or those have been understood. There are certain people who there's this A term. Do we know what is A? Asexual. They don't feel connected to any of this umbrella, or they don't feel connected to, they don't feel belong to any of this identity, and they claim themselves that no, I'm asexual, I'm not interested to men, into women, or into any of it, particularly into sexual orientation at large. So this is psychological, this is biological, this is understanding of both, this is understanding of a single term. It honestly depends from case to case, person to person. There are certain people who don't even feel to a certain extent कि अच्छा ये सब मेरे साथ हो भी रहा है, ये मुझे कुछ feel भी हो रहा है. When someone from very nearby gets out of their closet or they come across कि अच्छा ये, and then they start thinking, oh okay, even I should give it a thought. Maybe I should understand my own self to that extent. So ये बहुत कुछ चीज़ है.
In continuation to this, do you think that because of the exposure of social media and people getting to know that there are many similar mindsets, that like people have similar mindset to whatever they feel about it, do you think because of that coming out of closet has become much easier?
Coming out of closet is not easier, not at all easier. The struggle, the psychological dilemma, the social pressure that goes into it. Yes, we can say that that has helped or that has given them a bit of confidence that okay, there are certain places where I can go and share, maybe some safe places where I can go and at least understand that what is going on with me, that why so much of dilemma that is going on around me. Maybe that has helped, the social media has helped to understand how to recognize few safe places, but coming out of closet it's never easy, and the social media, it's boon and bane both. So sometimes they kind of help you, they kind of provide you safe places, but we have also seen examples wherein they target you based on your identification, based on your coming out. They try and target you and they try and put you down in a position where you feel very vulnerable. So few cases here and there, but not a true statement altogether. Yes.
I have come across people saying like, who, like you
See, identifying yourself, your sexual orientation, your gender orientation, even at times those people who feel themselves or who call themselves noble, we also feel the same way sometimes. I feel childish. I feel doing childish things at times. Does that make me a child? Does that change my orientation? See, we need to understand, we need to figure out the gender orientation of a person. At times, that's what the dilemma we are talking about, and that's where we're talking about creating a safe places wherein they'll understand the feeling, or wherein they'll have someone who will listen to them, or who will talk to them in non-judgmental attitude, or who will listen to them basically in non-judgmental way as to what am I feeling at this point of time. I feel blank at the point of time. I feel I don't even know what to feel at point of time. We all face such kind of situation, or we all face such type of understanding. But tomorrow I feel tree. Tomorrow I feel like a tree, or tomorrow I feel like a child, or tomorrow I feel like a non-living thing. This arguments, I guess, is just to divert from the main discourse of, and I'm just trying to put in more dilemma into what is already so much dilemma around there, and this is just trying to put more dilemma into this whole discourse around it. So I think
Because we as assistant professors, majority of the time encounter such, I have encountered such arguments from students. Yes, ma'am, aasa time asतं, or it is a phase and it will go. So we don't have answers to how to answer to it, whether it is scientific, psychological.
as a professors, you yourself, even so many times the family members, जसं मी आता उदाहरण दिलं होतं त्याचं की आपल्याकडे खूप कॉमनली बोलल्या जाणारी गोष्ट आहे, get him or get her married and things will be fine. एखादं मूल झालं की गोष्टी ठीक होतील. म्हणजे आता असं वाटतंय ना, ठीक आहे उद्या लग्न करून टाक, बायको आली ना चांगली, येस, बायको आली ना चांगली की तो होऊन जाईल नॉर्मल, ही गेट सेट इन टू दिस ऑल लग्न वगैरे या सगळ्या याच्यामध्ये तो होऊन जाईल. दिस इज अ पासिंग फेज, बट that's the reason we need to have more sensitized talks like this around this whole discussion.
Thank you, ma'am. With this, we have come to the end of our plenary lectures, and now we shall proceed with the paper presentations. Now, with great enthusiasm, let us move ahead to one of the most awaited part of our program, paper presentations. To chair this session, we are privileged to have with us Dr. Mayura Prakash Rao Borate. Ma'am, I request ma'am to please join on the raise. Law College, Pune. Her academic approach includes BSc in Physics, LLM, PhD, SET, MA in Political Science, CIPR, and DCI. She has a teaching experience of 14 years. She has organized and participated in various state, national, and international conferences, workshops, and activities. She has authored 40 research publications in reputed national and international journals having high impact factor. She has participated and presented research papers in 20 national and international seminars and conferences. Along with the doctoral research, she has contributed to several articles and papers in conference proceedings, newspapers, 2 book chapters, and a case studies. She is associated with various professional and social organizations. Her areas of interest are constitutional law, criminal law, intellectual property rights, and law of contract. Welcome you, ma'am. Now let's proceed with the session. Kindly note, each presenter will give 5 to 7 minutes to present your paper. We request all the presenters to stick their video. We request all the presenters to strictly adhere to the time limit so that the session runs smoothly and fairly for all. And now, let us begin with our first presentation of this session. I invite presenter first, Ms. Anuva and Ms. Anvesha.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Anvesha
And myself, Parikrama.
and we are first year MA Sociology students from Savitribai Phule, Pune University.
Today we are here to present our paper titled Masan, an interplay of caste and gender. And these are our objectives for the paper.
The first objective is to examine how Masan depicts caste and gender oppression through intersectionality and content analysis.
And our second objective is to examine Masan's portrayal of the gap between India's constitutional equality guarantees and the social realities. So, before diving into our presentation, I would like to give everyone a very quick summary of the film, assuming that many of us may not have heard of the film or seen. Can we get a handheld mic, please? That would be better, I guess. Hello, hello. Okay, I hope this is fine. Yeah. So before diving into our presentation, I would like to give everyone a very brief idea about what the film is about, since many of us may not have heard of the film or may not have seen it before. So let's start with the title. What does Masan mean? Masan practically refers to a crematorium, and that sets the overall mood for the film. Masan was released in 2015, and it was directed by Neeraj Khewan, and it's set in Varanasi, and it follows two parallel stories that eventually come together by the end of the film. First, we have our protagonist. Deepak, a young man from the Dome community of Varanasi. It is a marginalized community known for their caste-based occupation of burning funeral pyres. He works at the Harishchandra Ghat, burning bodies every single day, but he dreams of a life beyond the limits of his caste identity. Deepak tries to break free from the shackles of his caste identity and dares to fall in love with an upper caste girl, Shalu. But tragedy strikes when the love of his life, Shalu, dies in an accident, and Deepak is left dealing with grief and the weight of his social identity.
Next, we have our other protagonist, Devi, who is a Brahmin girl and is a university student. Her life is seen getting turned upside down in an instant when she is caught with her partner in a hotel room in a compromising situation during an illegal police raid. What follows her is shame, guilt, blackmail by police authorities, and social judgment for consensual choices. It also deeply affects her father, who is a retired university professor. By the end, both Deepak and Devi, carrying their own scars, cross paths by the river. And the film leaves us with a sense of hope and a chance for new beginnings despite everything else.
Moving forward, these are some of the literature we looked at so that we could understand the film a little better.
Firstly, we have Rajesh Khanna's 2025 study. Firstly, we have Rajesh Sharma's 2025 study of the Dome community in Varanasi that shows us that even today, even though the Dome people perform very important Hello. So firstly, again, we have Rajesh Sharma's 2025 work on the Dome community in Varanasi that shows us that even today, Dome people perform crucial works in cremation rituals, but even then, they remain stigmatized and socially excluded.
So there's a problem.
Use the podium mic. Hello. So they are excluded and stigmatized even today, and gender inequality, low poverty and low education levels till date continues to shape their everyday lives. This directly relates to our protagonist Deepak's story in the film, showing how his occupation and social identity limits his opportunities.
Next, we have Kimberly Crenshaw's work on intersectionality that helps us see things through a different lens. She points out that looking at oppression through only a single lens, like caste or gender, often ignores the unique struggles that overlap and people face these struggles in life. For example, in Masan, this is clear in Baby's story. While she has caste privilege, her gender vulnerability exposes her to a form of marginalization that someone like Deepak will never experience. Finally, we have Amarjeet Singh's 2021 analysis of caste in Indian cinema. It shows us that films often reinforce caste hierarchies. Upper caste characters are usually portrayed as reformers, heroes, while Dalit voices are either stereotyped or pushed to the margins. The film challenges this pattern by centralizing the experiences of characters like Deepak and showing us that caste is not only a backdrop, but a lived reality that shapes lives.
Moving on to the methodology that we have employed for this paper, it is content analysis, which is a detailed study of recorded human communications. So we used it to systematically analyze the film from a sociological perspective.
Now we would like to show you a small 1-minute clip from the movie which beautifully sums up the essence of Deepak's character. scene that we just saw vividly captures the harsh realities of those who live on the margins of society. Looking into Deepak's character, we see this most clearly, that when the love of his life, Shalu, dies in an accident, he has to cremate her himself. His personal sorrow is overshadowed by duty, showing us how caste affects even the most intimate and emotional aspects of life. Through Deepak's story, Masan also shows us that caste oppression isn't just about jobs or social barriers. It reaches into love, loss, and the ways people are allowed to grieve, reminding us how deeply it shapes human experience. For the Dones, cremation isn't just a ritual, it's their livelihood. Their lives are carried with other people's deaths. Someone else's grief literally puts food on their table. Caste fixes them in this unending cycle with no visible escape.
Moving on to our other protagonist, Devi's character. Her character is actually very interesting in the Indian context at least. So Devi's character brings out an interesting aspect of intersectionality into play. Devi's character is an upper caste Brahmin girl, and according to the caste hierarchy, the Brahmins are considered to be at the top of the social hierarchy, and they are also believed to be the most privileged in the society. But in Devi's case, her upper caste identity did not help her, but rather highlighted her marginalization as a woman. Her right to dignity is crushed in the police station when she is threatened and shamed for consensual intimacy. Being upper caste gives Devi social capital, but it also tightens control over her body and choices. Honor is often placed on women's bodies, making them responsible for family reputation or what we call as the self. As a result, women's sexuality is often treated not as a private matter, but as a public concern, open to judgment and control. I believe the concept of Brahminical patriarchy by Uma Chakravarti is very relevant here, since Brahmin women are seen as carriers of caste purity. On the other hand, even as a Brahmin woman, Devi cannot cross certain ritual boundaries. A scene from the film that has a dialogue, "Ghat pe ladies nahi ja sakti." It vividly sums up that access to sacred spaces is not just about caste. It's about the gender first. So the film uses the ghats to show who may approach death, perform rites and claim the rest, and who must stay out. So shall we let's start?
Here are some of the constitutional ideals versus the social realities that are portrayed in Masan. The constitution envisions dignity, equality and justice, but Masan shows us how lived realities often undermine these guarantees.
So we have Article 14 by the Constitution that promises us equality before law, but that is seen to be violated in the film when Devi and her partner are punished for making choices they made as adults. Then we also have Article 15,
which promises us non-discrimination, where Devi is seen to be barred from the ghats for being a woman, while Deepak and Shalu's relationship faces subtle caste opposition, exposing enduring hierarchies. Again, we have right to life and liberty, which is Article 21, but we see in the movie that an illegal police raid violates privacy, leading to Devi's partner's untimely death, highlighting the fragile constitutional safeguards. We would like to conclude our presentation by saying that the movie Masan beautifully represents the facts that are entrenched in the social realities of everyday life in India. Even if we, as citizens of the nation, are guaranteed certain rights under the Constitution, they prove to be insufficient under real-life conditions. We vouch for a more equitable and inclusive society. Legal access should be given to all despite their socio-economic backgrounds. We must ensure that codified laws are not just existent on paper but are implemented in a way that actually benefits everyone in an already complex Indian landscape. Thank you.
Thank you everyone.
Now I invite Mr. Roy Sengupta. I repeat, Mr. Roy Sengupta. I invite Mr. Parth Biswas.
Partha Sarthi Vishwas. Hello. Yes, sir. Hi, good evening. My name is Partha Sarthi Vishwas, and I'm the oldest student of Vishnu sir in the MA class. I will be talking about unreported physical and psychological violence faced by women in Pune. Now, Pokman had talked about this through transgenders, but my study and my paper is mostly about gay men and the violence they face. Before we go about this, let's talk a bit about the queer community, especially gay men in Pune. Pune, as you would know, has two pride marches. One is conducted by the Miss Foundation and the other is by the Youth of Trust. With the biological heir of PQRF and Sampati, which was one of the first SCBOs which have started working in the queer rights in Pune, to be honest. Then there are a large number of CBOs who have worked for health, mental and physical for the community. There are some cultural spaces which have been created, which Kotman talked about the need to be yourself. There are film festivals, there is bi-monthly or once a month queer meet, which happens at Balgandharva and other places, where they come together. Now, most important thing that ma'am talked about is the feeling of family. Amongst gay men, there is always the family of choice and the biological family that you are born into. And the family of choice is the family that you construct or that you get after you are with the men that you love or the people that you like, and that's what they are trying to do. Yeah, Pune is a very cosmopolitan crowd. Pune has a lot of students, people who come here quietly, people who are not from the state. So many of them can be themselves. They can try to come out from the closet a bit. So that's what makes Pune very interesting. And Pune, after Mumbai, was one of the first cities where queer rights movements had started, and that was started by Bindu Madhav Kire, who left his IT job in US to come here and start for the community. That time NACO had started the AIDS intervention movement, and that's how queer movement started, to be honest, in Pune. Then I have looked into violence, unreported violence under two subsets. One is the intimate partner violence and the violence for the queer community at large. Intimate partner violence can be from someone you love, someone whom you are sexually affected with, or someone with whom you are having some kind of a relation. And the queer community at large might be your friends, your colleagues, your other who are also gay or who are also in the queer community. Intimate partner violence can be emotional, psychological, financial, and physical. Why physical has been kept a bit separate, I will come to that in a second. And violence from the queer community can be emotional, psychological, and very rarely it can be physical. Now, why unreported violence in gay community is a socio-legal problem? Intimate partner violence among gay men has no legal definition. If a gay partner, if a gay husband, unfortunately India does not have equal marriage rights among gay men as of now. If a gay man who is in a relationship with a man is physically accosted, there cannot be any case. In case of women, we have got Domestic Violence Act, even for living relationships. Even and BNS, that is the erstwhile Section 428A, is applicable for a woman who has been hurt or has been harmed by a man. However, if a gay man is harmed by another gay man, how do you report it? Leave alone the mountains of obstacle when it comes forward reporting. When you go to the police station, it will be taken as a manslaughter. But a gay man harming his partner is more than manslaughter. There is an emotional angle to it. There is too many layers to the story to be unfolded. It's not as simple as like putting something that in Marathi we say "Jeev marne che dhoka" and other things. It's not that simple. Why did the Domestic Violence Act came into the beginning? We already had Section 498A. Why did the DV Act came into the place? Because there are too many layers to be addressed. There is a financial layer, there is a physical layer, there is an emotional layer. And these are the reasons why LPV in gay men requires a separate kind of activity, a separate kind of reporting. as I mentioned, we have protection of women against domestic violence, and gay men have a lot of problem articulation of the violence. At the end of the day, men everywhere have this masculinity, the curse of masculinity that I would like to say, which does not allow them to come out in the open to talk about the violence they are facing. Obviously, in sociology, we have theories which have talked about this, which we talk about why men face this problem. But that is one of the biggest things which gay men face when it comes about talking about this. Unreported violence is an affront to dignity of any human being. A human being who is not able to understand, report, or talk about the violence or the illegality that is happening with it is not being able to understand and exercise their legal rights. So, gay men have a dual identity. There is a private sphere for them and there is a public sphere for them. And these are some of the things which I call their legal violence. Let's come to IPV, that is intimate partner violence among gay men. As I told you, it is mental, emotional, and physical. Now, violence faced by gay men from queer community. Now, I have been, before I got into Vishnu sir's class, I was working as a journalist with Indian Express, which Anand sir mentioned while videoing. And the reason I came into Vishnu sir's class is I want to understand the theory behind violence, to understand why certain human beings behave in certain fashion. I had come across a case in which a gentleman was very obsessed with another man.